Hi, hello everyone. Good morning, all of you. So today we are going to discuss 16th group elements of class 12th. So 16th group elements. What are the elements comes under this 16th group? So as we know, oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium, polonium, and livermonium. So newly introduced element, that is livermonium. So its atomic number is 116 and mass number is 282. So it is a synthetically introduced element, newly introduced element. And one more thing, out of these all elements, the first four elements we call it as chalcogens. The first four elements we call it as what? Chalcogens. What is the reason why we are calling them as chalcogens? Why? Because most of the metallic ores are exist in the form of oxides, sulfides, selenites. So simply we are calling them as ore formers. Ore formers. That is why the first four elements of these 16 group elements we call it as what? Chalcogens. So coming to that, out of these all elements, oxygen is a gas. Oxygen is a gaseous element. Remaining all elements are solids. Oxygen is alone, is only the element which is in gaseous state in this. Next, the first two elements are non-metals. The first two elements are non-metals. Next two elements are metalloids. Metalloids. And polonium is a metal. Okay, so these are the metallic nature. That means when you go from top to bottom, what happens in non-metallic nature? Decreases. Metallic nature increases. Next, coming to the abundances of these elements. Abundance, occurrence of these elements. Occurrence. As you know, most of these elements except of oxygen can exist in combined form. So as we know, oxygen can exist in both free state, free oxygen, and also in combined form also. Combined form means it can be existing in two forms, that is what O2 and O3 form. Dioxygen, trioxygen. This is what we call it as ozone. As you know, O2, what is the main difference between O2 and O3? So if you see that O2, it is a paramagnetic species. As we know that the main difference, O2 is a paramagnetic, whereas ozone is diamagnetic. That's the main difference between O2 and O3. And one more thing, oxygen is the most abundant element in the earth crust. Element in earth crust. It is the most abundant element in earth crust. Okay. Next, coming to the sulfur. If you take the sulfur usually exists in combined form. Okay. In the form of sulfides, sulfates, etc. Sulfides. What are the compounds which are in sulfide form? That is, as we know, zinc sulfide, PbS, Cu, FeS2. Okay, copper pyrites, zinc blende, galena. So these all are sulfide forms. Sulfate forms, if you take CuSO4 dot 5H2O, okay, hydrated copper sulfate, and zinc sulfate, and Glauber salt, that is Na2SO4 dot 10H2O. So these all are what? Sulfate forms. So sulfur can exist in sulfide forms, sulfate forms, and also sulfur, the trace amounts of sulfur also present in very small amounts. Trace amount of sulfur present in garlic and onion, wool, etc. So this is about the existence of oxygen and sulfur, and overall when you check the abundances of these elements, what is the order of their abundances? It will decreases down the road. So order of abundancy, order is oxygen is more than sulfur, selenium and tellurium. So anyhow polonium is what? Radioactive elements. That is why we are not going to discuss about the polonium. Coming to the general electronic configuration, what is the general electronic configuration? That is Ns2Np4. Ns2Np4. So this is the last element, newly introduced element, evermorium. So that what is the expected configuration? That is 7s2 7p4. 7s2 7p4. And the polonium is a radioactive element, and its half time period is 13.8 days. Okay, it is a radioactive element. Its half time period is what? 13.8 days, and this is 7s2 7p4. General electronic configuration is Ns2Np4. Okay. Next, coming to the general periodic properties. Periodic properties. So in that, let us start with the atomic size. Yes, what happens in the atomic size? It follows a regular order. So from top to bottom, the atomic size increases only without any exceptions. The atomic size increases, but only one thing you should remember: from when you come from oxygen to sulfur, there was a sudden jump in their sizes. That is only the point you should remember in case of atomic sizes. Next one, ionization enthalpy. So it is also following the same regular order. That is from top to bottom, what happens? Ionization energy decreases. Okay, it decreases. But here point you should remember, the general electronic configuration of 60A group elements is, what is that? Ns2Np4. So by losing first electron, it is getting the stable octet configuration. So the IE1 value of 60A group elements is lesser than IE1 value of 50A group elements. That point you should remember. But when you compare the IE2 value, it will be reversed. Why? Because after you remove the first electron, it is getting the stable configuration Ns2Np3. From that stable configuration, remove the electron is very difficult. That is why IE2 of 60A is again greater than IE2 of 50A group elements. This point you should remember in case of ionization energy. Next one, electronegativity. So here, in case of electronegativity, when you come from top to bottom, usually the electronegativity decreases. That's the regular trend. Here it is also decreasing, but with one exception. So here there was one exceptional case. What is that exceptional case? That is what? Oxygen. After oxygen, what you are expecting? Sulfur. But here selenium will come. Sulfur, and there was an exchange of sulfur and selenium. So oxygen, sulfur, selenium, tellurium and polonium remaining as it is. Okay, what is the reason? So the reason is, when you come from oxygen to, actually oxygen is a diatomic gas, but remaining all are what? Polyatomic gases. Okay, that is one point. Diatomic gases and polyatomic gases. So Se8, S8. So because of sudden increasing the size, what happened? The effective nuclear charge of sulfur is less because of lesser atomic number. But here in case of selenium, size is almost same, but the atomic number increasing, that means nuclear power is increasing. That is why effective nuclear charge of selenium is greater than sulfur. That is why electronegativity is, there is a small exchange. Okay, so that is the exceptional case in case of electronegativity. After electronegativity, let us discuss electron affinity or electron gain enthalpy. Yes, what do you think? Already we discussed in 50A group elements. When you go from top to bottom, regular order is what? When you go from top to bottom, electron affinity value decreases. But in case of 50A, 60A, 70A, there was one exception with one exception. Okay, so what is the exceptional case? That is what? Oxygen. So usually oxygen should have more electron affinity than sulfur now. But here there was an exception. That is what? Sulfur is greater than. Okay, sulfur is greater than selenium, then tellurium, then polonium, and then oxygen. Oxygen is having the least electron gain enthalpy. So that is already we discussed in fifth year total mean. That is why I am not going in detail about that. So this is about electron affinity values. Next, after electron affinity value, then let us move to the density. Density. So what happened? It is following the regular order only. There was no exception in case of densities. And melting boiling points. Melting point again, it is also following the regular order. It is increasing, but boiling point only there was one exceptional case. Boiling point. Boiling point generally it increases now. When you go from top to bottom, the boiling point increases. What is the reason? Because size increasing, van der Waals interactions are increasing. If van der Waals interactions are increasing, so boiling point is also will increase. That is the general reason. Boiling point will increases, but with one exception here. With one exception. Exception at terminal. So what is that? Oxygen, sulfur, selenium. First three elements as usual, but only the difference is that tellurium is exceptionally having higher boiling point than polonium. That is the point you should remember. And one more thing, when you go from oxygen to sulfur, so oxygen to sulfur, okay, there was a sudden jump in boiling point. There was a sudden jump, means there was a huge difference between the boiling point of oxygen and sulfur. What is the reason? We know that oxygen is what? Diatomic. Sulfur is what? Octatomic. So because of their difference in their atomicity, what happened? The size difference is larger. Size difference is larger means the van der Waals interactions also, the difference is also large. So automatically the boiling point will be greatly different. Okay, this is about the boiling point. And one more thing here. Oxygen is alone the gas, remaining all other solids. What is the reason? Why only oxygen is a gas state? So if you see that oxygen, so there was a O double bond O. Whereas sulfur, usually sulfur is S8. S8 means S double bond is not possible. That we know that we will discuss in atomicity. So it is not possible. That is why it is exists in the form of Puckered ring structure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Total 8 sulfur atoms are present in the form of puckered ring or crown ring. Crown of the shape. Crown shape. So here in this case, in oxygen molecule if you take, there was a large interatomic interactions. Interatomic. Between the two atoms there was a great interactions are there. But when you go from one molecule to another molecule, there was a weak intermolecular interactions. So you should understand the point. In oxygen, there was a large interatomic interactions, but weak intermolecular interactions. So because of weak intermolecular interactions, those two molecules are far away from each other. So because of that, they exist in gases. Whereas in the remaining cases, so their intermolecular interactions are strong. Because of that, they come close together and they exist as what? Solid in state. That is the main reason why O2 is a gas, whereas remaining all others are solids. Next, move to the next one. Oxidation states. Oxidation states. So coming to the oxidation states, as we know, the general electronic configuration is what? NS2, NP4. NS2, NP4. So that the usual oxidation states, the common oxidation states, are +2, and if they get the valence shell having 6 electrons, by gaining 2 more electrons they get octet configuration. Their usual oxidation states are -2, +2, +4, +6, etc. Okay, but if you take the first element, oxygen can show only -2 and +2. It will not show +4 and +6. What is the reason? In order to show the +4 and the +6 oxidation, they should have empty d orbitals. But in oxygen belongs to secondary period. There was no d orbitals in that case. That is why, because of absence of back into d orbitals, oxygen can show either -2 or +2. Okay. Next one, sulfur. If you take sulfur, remaining elements, sulfur, selenium, tellurium. If you take they can show +2, +4, +6. whereas tellurium can show +4 oxidation states. So that means when you go from top to bottom, what are the observations you observe? That is what the -2 oxidation state tendency. The tendency of showing -2 oxidation state decreases. What is the reason? Oxygen is alone showing the -2 state now, whereas remaining all are showing almost positive oxidation states. Tendency of showing -2 oxidation state decreases. Reason is because decrease in the non-metallic nature. Only non-metals only can show the negative oxidation states. So in this group, when you go from top to bottom, non-metallic behavior decreases. So the tendency of showing -2 oxidation state also will decreases. Next, tendency of showing higher oxidation state is also decreases, but tendency of showing lower oxidation state, is a +4 oxidation state, increases. So this is because we know that this is because of what? Inert pair effect. Already we discussed the inert pair effect. Okay, so this is about the oxidation state. And one more point you should remember: usually oxygen will show -2 oxidation state in oxides. When the oxygen is along with any other elements, the usual oxidation state of oxygen is -2. When the oxygen is in the form of peroxides, the usual oxidation state is -1. So peroxides means what? They exist as peroxide means O2 -2. O2 -2 ion we call it as peroxide ion. So where oxidation state is -1. If the oxygen is exist as superoxide, what is superoxide? There the oxygen is in the form of O2-. Okay, their oxidation state is what? -1/2. And not only minus oxidation state, oxygen is also shows plus oxidation states. Oxygen also shows plus positive oxidation state. When the oxygen is along with a highly electronegative element than oxygen. In the entire periodic table, which element is more electronegative than oxygen? Only one element. What is that element? Fluorine alone. So that means when the oxygen is along with the fluorine. So what are the compounds that oxygen can form with the fluorine? Two compounds now, O2F2 and OF2. Only these two compounds are only formed with the fluorine. So and what is the names of this? You don't call them as oxides of fluorine. You should call them as fluorides of oxygen. Why? Because among the oxygen and the fluorine is a highly electronegative element. We should name them with a highly electronegative element first. That is why fluorides of oxygen, not oxides of fluorine. So in this O2F2, what is the oxidation state of oxygen? +1. Whereas in this case, +2. So like that, oxygen is showing different oxidation states. So this is about the oxidation state. Next, move to the catenation power. Catenation. As we know, the 4th A group elements are having highest catenation ability because of large CC single bond strength. As like here also, the sulfur single bond strength. So bond dissociation energy is very high. So because of larger single SS after carbon as sulfur, CC single bond strength is the highest. After that sulfur, thereafter phosphorus will come. So that is why the order of catenation will be CC is greater than SS greater than PP. So these all elements can show the catenation, but when they ask you the comparison, carbon catenation power is greater than sulfur than phosphorus. So this is about the catenation power. Thereafter, atomicity. Already we discussed oxygen is a diatomic gas, whereas the remaining all, that is sulfur, selenium, tellurium, remaining all elements are what? All elements are octaatomic. So already we discussed, that is O double bond O is possible. There is a formation of a single bond and a sigma bond and a pi bond. Why pi bond is forming here? Because oxygen belongs to secondary period. All secondary period elements are good pi bond forms, pi members. That is why here pi bond formation is easy. But in the remaining all cases, by going down the group, what happens? The pi bonding capability decreases. So they cannot easily form the pi bond. They have only the possibility of making sigma bonds. That is why they exist in the form of coupled ring structure. With this, the atomicity will be what? 8. So this is about the atomicity, catenation and atomicity. Okay. Next we move to the next periodic property, that is what? Allotropic property. Allotropes. Allotropic. Almost all the 6th A group elements can show the allotropic behavior except tellurium. Tellurium will not show. Tellurium will not show. Remaining all elements can show the allotropic behavior. Yes, let us see. Suppose if we take the oxygen if we take oxygen is in two allotropic forms, O2 form and O3 form. These are the allotropic forms of oxygen. And already we discussed what is the difference between the O2 and O3. This is what? Diatomic, triatomic, and this is a gas, and it can be existing gas and as well as solid form, and it is a non-poisonous. This is but poisonous. And one more thing is what? O2, O3. O2 is a paramagnetic species, but O3 is what? Diamagnetic species. So the main differences. Next, come to the sulfur. If you take sulfur can exist in 5 allotropic forms. 5. What are those? Alpha sulfur, beta sulfur, gamma sulfur, epsilon sulfur, and last one, plastic sulfur. Total 5 different types of allotropic forms of sulfur can exist. Alpha sulfur also we call it as rhombic sulfur. Rhombic sulfur. Beta sulfur also we call it as monoclinic sulfur. And gamma sulfur also we call it as gamma monoclinic sulfur. And this is epsilon sulfur, and this is a plastic sulfur. These are the names. And when you check these all, at room temperature, sulfur exists in which allotropic form? At room temperature, okay, sulfur exists in rhombic form, alpha form. Okay, that means alpha sulfur is most stable at a room temperature. Suppose if you heat the alpha sulfur, okay, it becomes beta sulfur. If you heat alpha sulfur, it becomes what? Beta sulfur, exactly at the temperature of 369. 369, that means almost 369 kelvins, that is 96 degrees Celsius. At 96 degrees Celsius, alpha sulfur and beta sulfur, they both are at equilibrium. So this 96 degrees or 369 kelvins we call it as what? Transition temperature. Transition temperature. What is the meaning of this transition temperature? That means if the temperature is below 96 degrees, the sulfur is in the form of alpha form. If it is above 96 means it will be in beta sulfur. Exactly at 96 they both are at equilibrium. So simply by heating, alpha sulfur is converting into beta sulfur. So alpha sulfur, so when you check these all, when you compare especially alpha and beta, okay, the stability and density rho, these two properties are greater for alpha. Rhombic sulfur having more stability, more density than beta sulfur. That is one point. But when you compare the melting points, alpha sulfur is less than beta sulfur. Monoclinic sulfur having higher melting point than alpha, means rhombic sulfur. So these 2 points, I think it will be enough. Okay, let us go ahead. What is the other elements? Oxygen, sulfur, over. Next one, selenium. If you take selenium can show total 3 different types of allotropic forms. They shows 3 different types. Total 5. Out of 5, 3 are non-metallic red colored allotropic form. Non-metallic allotropic form. One is amorphous. 2 are metallic gray. So non-metallic allotropes, amorphous allotrope, and metallic which color? Gray color. And when you compare total 6 allotropic forms now, selenium, and out of these all, 3 plus 1 plus 2, total 6. Out of these are these three forms, which is stable. So always remember that great allotropic form is a stable form. So this is stable allotropic form, then the remaining all others. So that is about the selenium, and tellurium will not show. Coming to the polonium, last element. Polonium can show two allotropic form, that is alpha polonium and beta polonium. So this is about the different types of allotropic forms. Okay, and this is what transition temperature of sulfur allotropic forms. And one more thing, how to prepare this alpha, beta, gamma allotropic and plastic sulfur. So let us see. Alpha sulfur, if you take alpha sulfur, usually you take a roll sulfur. Roll sulfur. What do you mean by the roll sulfur? Roll sulfur is nothing but when you are digging the sulfur from the sources, okay, that sulfur will exist in the form of rolls. So that means this is how the first form of the sulfur which is coming out from the sources. So you dissolve this roll sulfur in carbon disulfide. Carbon disulfide. Why? Because sulfur is more soluble in carbon disulfide but less soluble in water. So first you dissolve this in carbon disulfide. Carbon disulfide is highly volatile. So because of this high volatility, they undergo evaporation. After the evaporation, the sulfur that was dissolved in its carbon disulfide will be crystallizes out in a needle shape. That is what? Rhombic sulfur. So simply alpha sulfur will come out. Alpha sulfur. Okay. Next, suppose if you wanted to convert this to beta sulfur. So then what do? You just melt them. Melt the alpha sulfur. Okay. Followed by cooling. After melting, you just cool it. So then there was a crust formation takes place. Crust formation. On that formed crust, you make two holes. Through one hole, you pour the remaining solvent, remaining solution. Then that will come out other hole. With this, what happens? The remaining all unwanted impurities will eliminated out. So the pure crystals of beta sulfur will crystallize out. So beta sulfur is preparing from alpha sulfur simply. Suppose if you wanted to prepare gamma sulfur, how to prepare? You take hot concentrated sulfur solution. Okay, you just chill them. Chill them means we are bringing them to very very low temperature. If you do the chilling of hot concentrated sulfur solution, then we will get gamma sulfur. And the last one, plastic sulfur. How to prepare the plastic sulfur? You just take the boiled sulfur solution. So this boiled sulfur solution, if you drop it in cold water, okay, very highly boiled sulfur solution, suddenly if you drop it in cold water, then immediately the sulfur that was present in boiled water will precipitate out. That is nothing but what? Plastic sulfur. Plastic sulfur is amorphous form. Remaining four are what? Alpha, beta, gamma, epsilon are crystalline forms. This is what? Amorphous. So these are the methods of preparation of sulfur. So after that, these are the different types of allotropic forms of sulfur. Now the point is, if you take the sulfur, you take alpha form, beta form, gamma form, any of these form. So all alpha, beta, gamma forms at room temperature, they exist as S8 form. S8. How the S8 form exists? I told you already. S8 exists as what? Puckered ring structure. Puckered ring structure, also we call it as crown shape. So what is this crown shape? Okay, so this is puckered ring structure or crown shape. Okay, so this is a puckered ring structure in S8 form. So at room temperature, all alpha, beta, gamma forms are existing in which form? S8 form. Suppose if you heat them, if you heat this S8 form to the temperature of 160 degrees, then what happens? This closure chain will be broken and they form into linear form, and again it will convert it into S6 form. S8 becomes what? S6 at what temperature? At 160 degrees. So this is the structure of chair form. So in this chair form, and after this, if you further heat this S6 form to the temperature of 600 degrees, if you further heating, then S6 form becomes what? S2 form. S2 form. S2 is the same as like O2. It is same as like O2. O2 means in O2, as we know, O2 is what? Paramagnetic, because presence of two unpaired electrons in anti-bonding pi orbitals. Same as like here also S2 is also paramagnetic. It is also having two unpaired electrons in pi anti-bonding, pi star anti-bonding. And S2 it can be stable. S2 form is stable up to 2200 kelvins. It can be stable up to 2200 kelvins. So this is about the conversion of sulfur. S8, usually S8 form is more stable at room temperature. If you heat it to 160, it becomes S6. S6 form further heating to the 600, it becomes what? S2 form. S2 is showing the same property as like O2, like paramagnetic and chemical properties. So in the chemical properties, the first one, reactivity towards hydrogen. Reactivity of 16th group elements towards hydrogen. Yes, as we know, when these 16th group elements reacts with the hydrogen, they forms H2E type of hydrides. So here E is nothing but 16th group elements. H2E type. H2E means, if I write all, H2O, H2S, H2Se, H2Te and H2P. Water, we know that. Hydrogen sulfide, hydrogen selenide, hydrogen telluride, hydrogen polonide. So these are the names. And as we know, the first H2O is only liquid. The first one is only the liquid. Remaining all are colorless, foul smelling, toxic gases. Remaining all are what? Colorless, foul smelling, toxic gases. And one more thing, when you go from left to right, means H2O to H2O, H2PO, what happened the trains, let us see. When you go from H2O to H2PO, tell me what happened the bond length? Bond length increases. Why? Because size increasing, like increasing the size of the central atom, bond length increases. If bond length increases, what happened the bond energy or bond strength decreases. Why? Because they both are inversely proportional. If the bond strength decreases, we can easily break them, right? So the tendency of releasing the protons, what we call acidic strength. So acidic strength increases. Acidic strength is increasing means reducing agent nature also increases. Reducing agent nature also will increases. Okay, bond length increasing, bond energy decreases, so that acidic strength increasing and reducing agent nature increases. Okay, so this is about the hydrides of 16th group elements. Okay, next move to the, and one more thing, when you compare the H2O with HF, suppose if they ask you H2O and HF, which is having highest boiling point, let us say. Generally H2O has high boiling point. What is the reason? Why? Because at the stability also, H2O, if you see that H2O, overall one molecule of H2O can involve in 4 hydrogen bonds. What is the maximum number of hydrogen bonding that one H2O molecule can involve? 4. Okay, why? Because each hydrogen will involve in 2 H's and each oxygen involving in 2 H's, 2 H bonds, total 4. Whereas HF can involve maximum of 2 H bonds only. Okay, hydrogen will involve one H bonding, fluorine will involve in another H bonding. So that because of large number of H bonding, H2O having higher boiling point than HF. And one more thing, what about the stability of them? Stability, by going from top to bottom we can easily break them. We are easily breaking the HE bond, means the stability decreases. Stability decreases. And one more thing, ease of formation. Ease of formation also decreases. That means we can easily form H2, but it's very difficult to form H2PO. So one more thing, one more time, when you go from H2O to H2PO, what happens? The ease of formation decreases, bond length increasing, bond energy decreases, acidic strength increases, reducing agent nature also increases, stability decreases. Coming to melting boiling points. Melting boiling points already we discussed in 5th year group elements. H2O is exceptionally having highest melting boiling point because of its special feature. What is that? You can form H bonding. That is why usually it will increases, no doubt. But with an exception. With an exception. What is that exception? That is H2S less than H2Se less than H2Te less than H2PO less than H2O. H2O is exceptionally having highest melting boiling point than remaining all because it has the ability of forming H bonding. So this is about the reactivity towards hydrogen. Next, move to the reactivity towards oxygen. Reactivity towards oxygen. Usually when these elements react with oxygen, they form two types of oxides. One is EO2 type and another one is EO3 type. EO2 type we call it as dioxides and EO3 type we call it as what? Trioxides. And when you compare this dioxide, usually all dioxides and trioxides are most of these dioxides and the trioxides are what? Acidic in nature. And when you compare dioxides and trioxides, trioxides are more acidic than, so this is what? Acidic nature. Okay, acidic nature. Trioxides are more acidic than dioxide. Why? Because in trioxides element is in +6 oxidation state, here +4 oxidation state. Because of higher oxidation state, trioxides are more acidic than dioxides. And one more thing you should remember, when these dioxides on hydrolysis we get us acids. Okay, us acids. Whereas trioxides on hydrolysis we get ic acids. Okay, dioxides on hydrolysis we get us acids, trioxides on hydrolysis we get ic acids. Suppose if you take the dioxide, especially if you take the dioxides, what are the dioxides? SO2, SiO2, TiO2, ozone also. Okay, even ozone is nothing but oxide. O3 I am writing as what? OO2. Okay, OO2 is nothing but O3. Na? So it's an oxide of oxygen. Oxide of oxygen. So OO2 and SO2, these two are gases. Okay, next SeO2, TeO2 and remaining POO2. These all are what? Solids in nature. Only the first two are only gases, remaining all are what? Solids. And one more thing, when you dissolve SO2 and SeO2 in hydrolysis, okay, they are soluble in water and they form the corresponding us acids. But remaining, what are the remaining? TeO2 or POO2. Remaining oxides they are insoluble in the water. They are insoluble. Suppose if they are not soluble in the water, they won't form acid. But unfortunately, when we dissolve them in concentrated acids or bases, they are soluble. Okay, these higher dioxides are insoluble in water but soluble in concentrated acids and bases. It confirms that they are what? Amphoteric in nature. And one more thing, when you go from top to bottom, that means ozone, OO2, OO3, SO2, SeO2, from when you go from top to bottom, what happens? The acidic nature decreases. Acidic nature decreases and also reducing nature also decreases. That is why SO2 is a strong reductant, whereas POO2 is a strong oxidant. What is the reason why SO2 is a strong reductant? Why? Because when you go from top to bottom, what happens? Reducing nature decreases. So SO2 is a strong reducing agent, whereas POO2 is a weak reducing agent. Weak reducing agent means it is acting as a strong oxidizing agent. So this is about the dioxides. Then move to the trioxides. Trioxides, if you see, already we discussed trioxides are more acidic than dioxides. And when we dissolve these trioxides in water, we are getting ic acids. And one more thing. Best example, if you take SO3 in general they act as a strong oxidant, whereas SO2 strong reductant. But remember that SO2 can act as an oxidizing agent and reducing agent, but its reducing power is dominating than oxidizing agent. It's a speciality of SO2. It can show both oxidizing behavior and reducing behavior, but it is a reducing behavior is dominating over oxidizing behavior. But SO3 is a strong oxidant. Okay, suppose if you add SO3 to HBr, we are getting H2O and SO2 plus bromine. That means it is a oxidizing HBr to bromine. That is why it is acting as a strong oxidizing agent. And one more thing, SO2 in gases, SO3 in gaseous state, it is undergoing sp2 hybridization and exists as trigonal planar. What is the hybridization of SO3 gas? In a gaseous state, sp2 hybridization. What about SO2 structure? SO2, if you take SO2, double bond O, having a lone pair. So in SO2 also, center sulfur is undergoing sp2, but the geometry is what? Bent shape or angular shape. Bent or angular shape. But in case of SO3 in gases, hybridization remains the same. Both SO2 and SO3 in gaseous form, their hybridization is sp2, but structure here SO2 is a bent shape, that is what? Trigonal planar shape. But when the sulfur trioxide is in solid form, crystalline form, it exists in three different crystalline forms. That is alpha, beta, gamma. Alpha, beta, gamma forms. These are the three crystalline form or solid forms. And what is the difference here? In alpha form, these SO3 units are polymerizing in chain sheet like structures. In silicates, three-dimensional silicates are there. In three-dimensionally they will polymerize. So same as like here, in alpha form, SO3 units are polymerizing in chain sheet like structures. Because of this chain sheet like structure, its melting point is also highest, that is what? 62 degrees. 62 degrees. It's melting point. Whereas in beta form, so it is also polymerizing, but in tetrahedral form they polymerize. In tetrahedral units, that means SO4 minus 2 form, it will be polymerized. And its melting point is 32 degrees. 32 degrees. And the gamma form is a trimeric form. It exists as what? Trimeric form, like ice. Trimeric ice form, and its melting point is 16 degrees. 16 degrees. So this is about the three different forms of SO3. See, once again, chain sheet like structure is alpha, and the tetrahedral structure is a beta, and the trimeric form is a gamma. If you see the trimeric form, how they will exist? SO. So that is the structure of trimeric SO3. So in this case, each sulfur is undergoing sp3 hybridization. Whereas in a tetrahedral form, see that S double bond O, S double bond O, like this. What happen linearly in tetrahedral sulfate form, they will exist. In the sheet-like structure means here this is also will involving in bonding. Like this, in three different structures they exist. So this is about the reaction towards oxygen. Next, move to the third chemical property, that is what? Reaction towards halogens. Reaction towards halogens. When these elements, 16 group elements reacts with the halogens, they forms different types of halides. So where N is equal to 1, 2, 4, 6. That means if Ni is equal to 1, monohalides, 2 dihalides, 4 tetrahalides, 6 hexahalides. Like this, different types of halides will form. In any type of halides, always remember that EFN means fluorides. Fluorides always be stable than chlorides, then bromides, then iodides. So this is what? Stability or thermal stability. In any form, not only dihalides, not only hexahalides, in any halides, always be fluorides are stable than chlorides, then bromides, then iodides. What is the reason? Why? Because in fluorides, fluorine atoms are small in size, they can easily accommodate on the surface of the central atom. But because of increasing the sizes, what happen? These larger atoms cannot be accommodated easily on the surfaces, so their stability also will reduces. That is the reason. And let us discuss one by one. In that, the first one is what? Hexahalides. Hexahalides. In hexahalides, generally if you see that EX6 indicates what? Hexahalides. If you see the hexahalides, remember that in hexahalide the central atom undergoes sp3d2 hybridization. Why? Because 6 bond pairs, and they exist in which general formula? Octahedral structure, and their bond angle is what? Bond angle is 90 degrees. This is a common. All hexahalides are sp3d2 hybridization and octahedral, and bond angle is 90 degrees. And one more thing, out of all, SF6 is stable. SF6 is stable. Okay, sulfur hexafluoride is stable. They may ask you the question, why SF6 is highly stable and less reactive? Let us see that. In this hexafluoride, in this sulfur hexafluoride, the central sulfur atom is surrounded by 6 fluorine atoms. 6 fluorine atoms. So because of surrounding these 6 fluorine atoms, okay, if any reagent is trying to attack, the reagents cannot easily attack the central sulfur atom. If the reagents cannot attack on the central sulfur atom, then they are highly stable. So they may ask you this question, very important. Sulfur hexafluoride is highly stable or less reactive because 6 fluorine atoms are surrounding the central sulfur atom. They prevent the attack of the reagents on the central sulfur atom. So that is why SF6 is highly stable. But remember that if the size increases, size of the central atom increases, then again the stability will decrease. Stability decreasing means reactivity increases. So we can say that reactivity is directly proportional to what? Size of central atom. Size of central atom. So this is about the hexahalides. Next, move to the tetrahalides. Tetrahalides. In tetrahalides, so usually EX4 type. EX4. If you see that in the central atom valence is 6, but out of 6 valence electron, 4 are only involving in bonding. That means 4 bond pairs. The central atom having 4 bond pairs and 1 lone pair, total 5. So what is the hybridization? sp3 dehybridization. sp3 dehybridization means trigonal bipyramidal, general geometry. But because of presence of a lone pair, okay, it's a AB4E type. According to Vesper theory, the trigonal bipyramidal shape becomes what? Seesaw shape. Seesaw shape. Okay, that is about the geometry of this tetrahelix. And coming to the tetrahelix, one point you should remember. So what is that? Gases. EBr4 is liquids. EI4 is solids. Okay, what is the reason? Why they are gases, why they are liquids, and why they are solids? Just common sense. When you go from tetrachlorides to tetrabromides, what happens? The sizes increases. So if the size increases, what happens? The van der Waals interactions automatically increases. So van der Waals interactions also will increases. If the van der Waals interactions are increasing, they gets closer to each other. So their physical state will changes. That is why they are gases, they are liquids, and they are solids. So that their boiling point also will increases. So this is about the tetrahelix. And one more thing you should remember in that we will discuss in dihelix. Next, move to the dihelix. Dihelix. So coming to the dihelix, as when we represent this with EX2 type. In EX2, the central element having 2 bond pairs and 2 lone pairs, total 4. So what is the hybridization? sp3 type. Okay, general geometry is tetrahedral, but because of presence of 2 lone pairs, they becomes what? Bent shape. They exist in which shape? Bent shape. And coming to the dihelix, oxygen will form. Oxygen can form only difluorides. Okay, fluorides only. So oxygen will not form dichlorides, or dibromides, or diirides. Oxygen can form only difluorides only. Next, coming to the remaining elements, that is what? Sulfur, selenium. Sulfur or selenium, they can form only chlorides and bromides, but not iodides. Sulfur or selenium can form only sulfur chlorides, sulfur bromides, but not iodides. Okay, so that point you should remember. So this is the one more point in dihelix. And SeCl2 undergo disproportionation, and they becomes what? They becomes SeCl4 plus Sc. That means here this is in +2 oxidation state, +4 oxidation state, 0 oxidation state. So +2 becomes +4, +2 becomes 0. So it is undergoing disproportionation reactions. So these are the points you should remember in case of dihelix. Then move to the monohelix. Usually most of the monohelix are exist in dimeric form. Dimeric form. Okay, suppose for example you take O2F2. Generally OF, but OF should not be exist. O2F2. Similarly S2F2. Next S2Cl2. Okay, Se2Cl2, like this. They are exist in what? Dihelix form, dimeric form. And O2F2, it is same like its structure is same like H2O2. Like H2O2, it is having open book like structure. Okay, and its dihedral angle and also bond angle is almost same as like H2O2. And S2F2, it is usually unstable. S2F2 is unstable, and it exists in 2 isomeric form. S2F2 exists in 2 isomeric form. In its structure, if you see, one is SS like this, like H2O2. It is also exists like this. Next one, S double bond S F2, thionyl fluoride. In these 2 forms, the S2F2 can exist. Okay, anyhow, it's unstable. So this is about the monohelix of 6th A group elements. So with this, the reactivity towards halogens have been finished.